Hello, my name is James Williams. I am an adult with autism, multiple food allergies, and low acid reflux. And today, I'm going to be talking about conversation taboos and how they relate to people with disabilities. The title of my presentation today is, Are You Their World? It's Me Disability. How Conversation Taboos Affect People with Disabilities. The title of this presentation is inspired by the classic book, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, by Judy Blume, a book that discusses the taboo subjects of menstruation and religion. This presentation was inspired by an experience I had many years ago when my self-advocacy career as an adult with autism was beginning. I was at a one-day conference in Pinellas County, Florida, where I saw a presentation about autism, life skills, and independent living as it related to being an adult with autism. And one thing that caused me to have an epiphany was when the speaker stated his conclusion that most of the life skills that autistic people struggle with can be categorized into three specific parts. They were, to him, health, hygiene, and finances. And when he said those three words, health, hygiene, and finances, a light bulb was lit in my head. Health, hygiene, and finances have one thing in common. They represent the three deepest conversation taboos we have in society. They represent the three things that society tells people growing up they openly can't talk about. Yet, at the same time, society still expects people to manage them independently without being able to talk about them openly. I mean, think about it. We're told we can't openly talk about our health, yet if we were to go out in our community visibly sick, people would get upset with us. We're told we can't talk openly about hygiene, yet if we went out in our communities with dirty clothes or stinking or visibly not having showered, people are going to get upset with us for that. And we're told not to talk openly about our finances, but people can get into big trouble if they don't know how to manage their finances properly. And that led me to the conclusion that conversation taboos can make things a lot more difficult for people with disabilities when the taboo relates to something that they have difficulties with. And that what can cause or magnify a difficulty in a certain life skill isn't just the difficulty they might have with their disability in of itself, but also the fact that they can't talk about it openly when they need to. They can't always ask for help when they need to because of those taboos. Therefore, in this presentation, I, alongside various assistants, will be talking about how many taboo subjects in society affect people with disabilities, and how many life experiences that people with disabilities have often relate to taboo issues that people aren't always comfortable talking about. This presentation will consist of stories that I and my fellow assistants with disabilities will share, along with a series of one-act follies and skits related to the stories that we share. I will now give a disclaimer before we start. Although I am using my actual name of James Williams, all of the assistants you will see today will be using stage names. None of them will be addressed by their legal names. In addition, although I will be telling stories from my life, I will not be sharing any identifiable information relating to anyone I talk about in my stories or any real-life locations where the situations I plan on talking about have occurred. My assistants will not be sharing the identities of anyone they talk about either, in order to respect the privacy and confidentiality tied to the stories and skits that we are going to share. In addition, because this presentation is going to discuss taboo subjects, there are going to be issues addressed that might negatively trigger people. We are going to talk about issues like abuse and assault and bullying and puberty and adolescence and many sensitive subjects that may upset individuals. During this presentation, my assistants and I plan on addressing these issues in a realistic way. We will not use any gratuitous vulgar language, but may use such language if needed in order to tell our stories. But remember, the intent is not to upset anyone, but to educate people about the real-life issues that people with disabilities go through and how they relate to conversation taboos in our society. Now that I have shared this disclaimer, without further ado, we shall now begin Act 1 of Are You There World? It's Me, Disability. Please welcome my assistant for Act 1, Miss Lillith.
Hi, I'm Lillith. I was diagnosed with multitude of things, including ADHD, ADD, bipolar, severe anxiety and depression, triple X, infertile X, missing chromosomes, and as well as multi-personality. I'm on the autistic spectrum, and lots of other things that I can't even remember because there's just so many. Thank you.
And now to begin, Lillith will be talking about some of her experiences growing up with her disabilities in the small town she grew up in and during adolescence.
Yes, when I was younger, I moved around a lot, and after my dad passed away when I was 9, I moved in with my grandparents in a different town, and so I was the new kid, and it was very small, and everybody knew everyone else except for me. I didn't know anyone because I was new, and no one knew me, and it was a struggle because, you know, small town, everyone knows everyone knows everyone's business. If you're new, everyone's gonna be in your business, and I was just kind of like this kid that no one knew, and they didn't like me. It's like I was fresh meat for wolves. I got bullied a lot when I was from grade school up through high school. In grade school, teachers used to act on things that kids used to say about me, like, oh, well, you know, she stole from me, so you should let me take the items back that are mine. they're probably in her school locker. And so, like, the teachers would just allow kids to go through my stuff and take what they wanted if they made assumptions that I'd stolen something from them. And that was very, very frustrating because I don't steal, never have, and I was very annoyed because the teachers would just be like, oh, well, you know, this kid's been in my class for longer, we don't know you, so obviously they must be telling the truth. So yeah, sure, they can go through your backpack and pick out what they want that they think is theirs. And it's just like, wow, thanks. Appreciate that. And up through, sitting at school at lunch, I was always alone, or there'd be the popular kids that would come to my table and be like, saying mean things to me or doing mean things, like, throwing things at me or whatever. Up through middle school, I had a lot of like cognitive learning issues and disabilities with like math and science and some other classes, and I was a geek, I wore glasses, I got called freak and a lot of other names for it. But because I was bad in certain classes and I had to have specific study halls and specific classes for more underlearned kids, basically the term they like to use was mentally retarded children that didn't know how to learn on their own. There was a specific class for them, and I got stuck in it because I was bad at math. And because I had this disability that defined my entire life. And I hated being connected to that. The classes were helpful. They helped me learn the material easier and slower than the rest of the class. But it was also difficult because that's how everyone defined me. I was this weird kid who couldn't learn the same thing that they could. I couldn't do it at the same pace that they could. My brain didn't work like theirs. And it was just a horrible experience. And like up through high school, I used to get bullied for being a late bloomer. All the girls in the locker room during gym class would change into their gym shorts and gym clothes, and I would just be like, okay. Like, I don't have anything. I didn't have to wear a bra. I didn't have like the fancy panties that everyone in high school had. All the popular girls, semi-popular girls. Everyone who was somebody had nice clothing in that school, and I just wasn't one of them. My family was poor. We just moved. My dad had passed. There wasn't a lot that I came from at that point. And just having people pick on me for so many things, and then having that on top of it. It's not like there were changing rooms in the lockers. I couldn't just go into a bathroom stall and change. No, you had to do it publicly, and it wasn't something that was nice. I used to wait for the other girls to change, and then I'd be late to gym class because I didn't want to change in front of the other girls. And then I'd get yelled at by the gym teacher because I was late to gym class. But no one really understood what I went through because of it. Yeah. I got bullied outside of school too. It wasn't just that. Inside school was terrible. Outside of school was worse. I used to get pushed around and followed home, and I had an assault happen after school, and I had an issue with kids specifically that was pretty popular. He basically assaulted my grandmother's house and then left his bike there thinking that he could blame me for being a thief and that he'd get away with it, and it was horrible. Going through all of that and having the mental disabilities and being late bloomer and just being this new kid that everyone had a problem with, even though there was really no reason to be picking on this new kid. They found a way. It just sucks sometimes.
Thank you for sharing, Lillith.
Yeah.
And one thing I can tell you is, although obviously I'm a guy and didn't go through various things you went through as a girl, I too had my own share of discomforts and struggles in locker rooms when I was in high school. One issue I had changing in gym in a guy's locker room is that I was always the subtype of autism that didn't experience romantic or sexual attraction. In many ways, I identified as asexual and openly identify as asexual, even though my asexuality is connected to my autism and differs in some ways from the asexuality found in asexual individuals who do not have autism. And one thing that I struggled with was whenever I changed in a locker room, I would always have to hear the locker room talk that so many of the other guys talked about that was so sexual in nature and involved so much sexual discussions that I just couldn't relate to. And I just got frustrated, okay, I'm supposed to relate to my male peers because of my peers, yet they're talking about all this sexual stuff that I really can't relate to. And I was like, okay, let me come in here, change in my gym shorts, and get out before I have to hear anything more.
Yeah, that's relatable. A lot of the girls in our high school was constantly talking about, oh, which boy should I kiss? This one's so cute. Oh my god, does my bra look cute? Are they gonna like me in this bra? What if I wear this top so that my bra strap shows? Are they gonna like me? Oh my god, shut up. I don't care. I don't care.
And did the guys engage in sexual conversation in your high school too?
Oh, there was more than just conversations. You would go to the bathroom mid-period with one of your classes, and there'd be kids in your bathroom making out against the wall. Jesus Christ! If you're gonna do that, do it elsewhere, not at school. School isn't a place for you to do that.
And one of the things that Lillith and I both experienced when we went through high school is here we were having to negotiate all these open conversations about sex and sexuality when the reality is we entirely weren't into that stuff. And in fact, people technically can live without that stuff. But what you can't live without is coping with the physical changes of puberty. And so what baffled both of us is, okay, here we were struggling with the physical changes of puberty. Lilith talked about some of her experiences. I had my own share of experiences with puberty. And one thing that frustrated us is, okay, why is it that teenagers think it's okay to talk about sexual stuff that technically you can live without, but they consider it taboo to talk openly about issues related to puberty and physical changes that we all have to go through? I mean, as a female, you have to go through female changes. As a male, you have to go through male changes. Why is that taboo if we all have to go through it?
Hi. So in my high school, I had a lot of problems with guys and other girls in my school just making fun of me for being a late bloomer. And there was a a lot of vulgar things being said, and then there was also like this horrible group of guys that were always just constantly talking about sexual things in the hallway, or like pulling you to the side and asking for your opinion, and it's just, or like forcing the conversation on you. So yeah.
Hey, Miss Flat-Chested, how you doing today?
Screw you, buddy.
So, did you forget your bra again?
For your information, at least I don't need one.
So, wearing those little kitty booties now, aren't ya?
Unlike your clown shoes.
Hey, did I tell you? I'm gonna go and bone that hot cheerleader tonight. I'll let you know how things go. Yeah, man, let me. I'm gonna be doing stuff with that hot band geek. You wanna let me tell you how it went? Sure. We'll chat about it when it happens. And one thing I can tell you is, just like Lillith had to hear those conversations when she was in high school, I did too. However, at the same time, as an autistic guy who identified as asexual, many of those guys also gave me a hard time for not having those romantic interests. In fact, I'll never forget a time when it was right before my high school's homecoming dance. And there was this one female friend I had who had a bunch of guy friends. And although they were her friends, they were often very nasty to me. And they caused me a lot of trouble one year when they just started pestering me to tell them who I was going to homecoming with. I told them that I didn't know. And they said, well, maybe you should ask a girl. And I said, well, if I know a girl, I will. And then while that happened, a girl started walking by who was a cheerleader, and they said, here's a girl. Why don't you ask her? And I said, because I don't know her. And they said, well, maybe we can ask her for you. And they came up to her black group and said, hey, our buddy James has something he wants to ask you. And meanwhile, I'm back there and I tell him, no, I'm not. Oh, no, James, it's okay. We're your best friends, right? And I realized I did not want those guys doing what they are, anything more to this girl. So I said, okay, let me go and ask her. We'll go over there, and I'll let you know what happens. And so the guys backed off. And then I walked up to the girl and said, hey, I know I don't know you. I wasn't planning on asking you anything, and I'm really sorry those guys that they are not my friends.
They do that to all the guys in the school. They're the bullies. I completely understand. It's okay.
Thank you for understanding.
Yeah, of course.
Fortunately, she walked away, and I also kept my biggest secret to those guys. I did know who I was going to homecoming with. I was going as a student peer buddy, alongside the severely disabled students in the self-contained classroom. But the last thing I wanted was those bullies to know that I was going as a student peer buddy with the kids who were the most disabled. However, seeing that incident made me realize that I wanted to still find a way to get those guys to stop harassing me. Now, the reason why I was hanging out with them was because they often hung out with this one girl who saw me as a good friend. And although she couldn't admit it in front of them, she would tell me privately that she liked me as a friend because she knew I didn't play along with them. So we made a decision one day about how she was going to help me defend myself from them. Hey.
Hey.
I'm sure you saw what happened with what those guys did regarding that girl.
Yeah, and it seems to happen a lot. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Guys treat me that way because, as you know, I'm not into dating. I'm not into romance. But I am into hugging, and I'm also not against, or not down doing something to get them to keep quiet.
I understand that.
So I want to ask you, if they cause trouble again and we're hanging out, would you be willing to give me a big hug to make it look like that we might have feelings so they'll stop harassing me because I'm not dating?
Sure. Anything for a good friend.
Sure. Is this okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right. So if that happens, that'll be okay, right? All right, thank you.
Of course.
In the end, my friend and I never pretended to hug because in the end, we didn't have to. I basically came to the realization that if I was going to hang out with my female friend or guy friends, I would have to deal with what those guys were doing. So that concludes our first section of the one-act follies. Meanwhile, one other struggle that I went through during adolescence was coming to terms with my aromantic asexuality. Before I knew what the terms aromantic and asexual were, I thought that I must be weird and crazy because I saw how other teenagers experienced romantic and sexual attraction, but for some reason, I wasn't experiencing that attraction. And I sometimes thought, what's wrong with me? But ironically, it was coming to terms with my aromantic asexuality that also helped me come to terms with another part of my autism as well, in a way that, at first, I had no idea that I would do so. What enabled me to come to terms with my aromantic asexuality was forming a good friendship with a girl in my community who had ADD. This girl and I formed a very close non-romantic friendship. And through our friendship, she helped me understand what asexuality was and helped me realize that I was asexual, that there was nothing wrong with me not having the same romantic and sexual attraction that other teenagers experienced, and that it was okay. And she even helped me develop a sense of pride about being aromantic and asexual. And in fact, one of the reasons why we developed such a good friendship is because, as she said, I can be a good friend with you, despite you being a guy and me being a girl, because I know you aren't going to try to hurt me. You aren't going to try to abuse me. And I know that I can tell you personal things and secret things, and you'll be comfortable listening to me, and you won't use it against me. Indeed, after I came to terms with my asexuality, which took place during my sophomore year of high school, most of my friends ended up being female. A lot of the guys I went to high school with, they had a hard time coming to terms with my asexuality. But a lot of the girls respected me for it. They also respected other parts of my autism as well. And therefore, my friends ended up becoming mostly girls in high school. But you know what? That didn't bother me. Because as an autistic person, I was happy I had friends. I didn't care if they were guys or girls, but I realized that I was more comfortable around my female friends in a non-romantic way because they didn't care that I was asexual. They didn't care about my autistic traits. They tolerated them. And they valued my friendship because, just like my other friend said, they liked the fact that we could be friends, and they knew I wasn't going to try to date them or flirt with them or be anything than just a friend. In fact, having those female friends enabled me to cope with many of the struggles I went through related to puberty because a big part of our friendships was talking openly about those issues. One gift about my autism was female issues didn't make me uncomfortable, so my female friends told me, if they were comfortable doing so, about their period problems and their bra issues, and I even encouraged them to do so because it helped us bond and become closer friends. And in return, I would talk to some of them about my puberty issues, and they would listen to me. In addition, I valued those strong non-romantic connections because I didn't have to worry about them talking about some sexual thing that I was supposed to relate to that I couldn't. But here's what I also discovered too. Growing up, I often had difficulties making friends, and my parents and others believed that, I was just an autistic kid who didn't want friends. But I can tell you this. When I became friends with those girls in high school, suddenly I craved friendship. I desired friends. I wanted friends, and I looked forward to the time I spent with my mostly female friends. I was forced to realize that what I thought was a lack of interest in friendship, and what other people thought was just the fact that I wasn't entirely comfortable with the same gender peers that other people in society wanted me to be friends with. And that in fact, I wanted friends like most other people, but it's just the friends I wanted were different than the friends other people wanted me to have. Most people pressured me to become friends with same-gender, non-disabled peers that I often couldn't relate to, whereas the friendships that I valued were my female friends and friends with different gender identities that had autism and the form of autism I had, and friendships with other disabilities, regardless of their gender identity. And so what I realized is sometimes it can look like a disabled person doesn't want friends, but that's really because that disabled person might not be in a position where they can make the friends that are comfortable and for them that they are comfortable making, because society often dictates who we should be friends with. And sometimes the friends that people with disabilities value are friendships that society often considers to be taboo. I mean, let's face it. Society often considers it taboo for guys and girls to form non-romantic friendships. Society often considers it taboo for people of different ages to form friendships. Yet oftentimes these are the friendships that many people with disabilities are the most comfortable making and maintaining. And now, Lillith will talk about some of her unique friendship preferences and how they differ from society's friendship expectations.
Yes. Well, as you were saying, a lot of your friends were females. Well, a lot of my friends were guys. Being friends with females meant that, you had to gossip. You had to be one of the girls. You had to dress like them. You had to be like them. You had to talk about things that they liked talking about, which was gossip, boys, sexual things, and have you found a boyfriend? What's he like? We should talk about everything guy related, and that's great once in a while to have that one friend that you can talk to everything relationship about. But when it comes down to having friends that are girls that don't have the same mental disabilities or understand the mental side effects that you have that they can't wrap their own brain around, they get judgy and they start gossiping about you instead of to you about other things. And that's just not a friendship relationship I want to have. I had a situation like that at one point where I was very naive and I used to tell people, my story, and I used to be very open, and it backfired in my face once. I trusted this girl very much. Her name is not needed, but she was very kind to me, very nice. And then when her other best friend became interested in the same guy that I was interested in, it ended up boiling down to all of the things I had told her about my mental illness and about my issues that I struggle with anger and anxiety and impulses and inability to make good choices on occasion. She used them all against me to make it sound like I was this horrible person that was psychotic and needed help, and that she didn't want anything to do with me because I was a harm to everyone. And that's just not how it happened. And it really hurt me because I thought that I could trust her, and I felt betrayed. She made a whole PDF document about it and sent it to everyone we knew. And I was just like, great, not only did I get bullied throughout my entire high school years and everything, but now I'm being bullied by my friends who I thought were my friends, but aren't actually my friends. And so it boiled down to me just like, wow, I really don't want to have friends that are girls in my life anymore, because drama, gossip, it can be about everyone else, but they can gossip about you too. And having friends that are guys, if you choose them wisely, there's not a lot of drama. And if you get into an argument, you can always make up later. But with girls, we're oversensitive. We take everything over the top. We're overreactive on everything. And it can be a huge blowout. But with my guy friends, I don't normally have that issue. And it's nice to have someone that you can open up to and talk to and not have to have them worry about them, well, I listened to your problems and I think you owe me now. that's not a true friend. That's just a guy hoping that he can be your temporary shoulder to cry on and then get something out of you. That's not the type of guy friend that you want. Having guy friends that are there for you whenever you need them, and just having someone to talk to, having someone to hang out with, having someone to watch Netflix with, even if you don't have any interest in being romantic with them, and vice versa, that's nice. It's nice to have that comfort and that safe space with those guys, those friends, and I feel like I relate to that a lot. I'm sure that most girls are friends with other girls because that's what society wants. They're like, oh, well, girls and girls should be friends, guys and guys should be friends, because girls and guys, if they're friends, oh, there must be something going on between them, because no guy and no girl can just be friends without there being some sort of sexual tension between the two of them. And that's not always true. You don't have to be sexually involved with your guy best friend just because society is like, can't happen. That's not how it is. Everyone is different. And as he mentioned, being an asexual person, I am also borderline asexual, so I don't have that interest. I'm not really attracted to that type of situation. I don't really have that. And so it's nice to find people who you can relate to on that specific platform, that are like, specific group of just general, that you don't have to worry about the guys taking advantage or them wanting something in return for you being open and emotional and sharing things about yourself that you wouldn't normally do. And yeah, I will admit that I have quite a few trust issues because of situations that have occurred in the past due to people taking advantage and ex-friends that were girls that decided that, oh, well, she's crazy. We gotta stay away from her because she's gonna cause us problems. And it's just really frustrating because you shouldn't have to be judged on who you want to be friends with. Society should not be able to judge you for who you connect with. It's just wrong.
Thank you, Lillith. And one thing that I think is also important to acknowledge is that you have been diagnosed with many disabilities that tend to be predominantly diagnosed in guys. And one thing I can tell you is that I had many female friends that had many of those disabilities as well. In fact, a significant number of my female friends I grew up with had disabilities that are predominantly diagnosed in guys. And one thing that I noticed is that a lot of them had mainly guy friends because they often struggled to relate to non-disabled girls who couldn't always understand their disability, and at the same time were often judged negatively by others in their community for having that disability, but they tended to relate to guys that had their disability, sometimes better than other girls. But at the same time, they often needed to discuss female issues like both of us have discussed, and couldn't always follow the societal expectation that you've got to talk about your female issues with girlfriends, because they didn't always have girlfriends they could talk to. And so, while society likes to consider non-romantic cross-gender friendship as a taboo thing, to many of my female friends with disabilities and to Lillith, having those non-romantic guy friends to talk to meant everything to them. For our next round of one-act follies, Lillith and I will now perform skits related to cross-gender friendship and individuals with disabilities. Growing up, both Lillith and I often made friends with people who had different gender identities than we did, and we weren't bothered by that. In fact, as you've heard us say, we valued those friendships. Our biggest obstacle wasn't our comfort levels, it was the fact that society often judged our friendships negatively. Hey, what's wrong?
I got into it with a guy friend and they don't like me anymore.
I'm so sorry. Hope it's okay. I just saw you upset and figured I wanted to talk to you, and it's my free period.
Yeah, I messed up and now he won't talk to me anymore. I feel really bad about it.
That must be hard. I know what it's like to be rejected. I've had friends out of the blue just completely forget our friendship or just suddenly no longer see me as a friend.
Yeah, it sucks to be forgotten or to do something that makes them forcibly forget you.
But I will tell you, one thing I've learned is my friends tend to be mostly girls because I'm not into dating, and they tend to accept that.
Yeah, I have a lot of guy friends because it just makes life easier. There isn't any drama, and except for if you end up having feelings for one of them, like this guy.
Yeah. Or if they have feelings for you. I mean, I have to say I enjoy having female friends, but I had to say goodbye to a female friend because she now has a boyfriend, and now her boyfriend doesn't want us to be friends anymore.
I'm sorry, that really sucks.
It's alright, but just to show you, if we end up becoming friends, I will never try to date you.
I appreciate that. I don't need all these guys drooling over me. I wouldn't know what to do with myself anyways.
You wouldn't? No. The truth is, I have never developed feelings for my friends who are female. But we talk openly about many things, honestly. Girl stuff doesn't make me uncomfortable. I have female friends who have really nasty period problems, and I actually carry pads and tampons for my friends, and I also carry hair ties and chocolate too.
Well, that's awesome, because I am a chocolate hair tie loving female with horrible hormonal issues.
No. Hey. I hope you feel better, and if you see me, you can always ask me for a pad or a tampon if you need one.
Usually I'm pretty good. I try to keep them with me if I know it's coming.
Well, of course.
I'm prepared.
Well, of course. I mean, that's just what a girl does. But you know, I have some friends with disabilities who have a hard time remembering their supplies, and that's what this is for.
That's really nice.
Hey, do you want to be friends?
I'd like that.
All right. Just, you can always say hi, and this is our free period. Happens to be our free period. We can hang out.
Awesome. Oh, that was my leg.
I'm sorry.
That was my fault. It's these hardwood floors.
Yeah, no, the school shouldn't have gotten rid of those carpets.
No kidding. They're so painful.
Yeah. And the gym teacher should have put their cat back in the office where it
No
belongs.
kidding. What are you doing out here, huh? You're cute and all, but I don't think you're supposed to be in the library, Kitty.
Several days later.
Hey, I got my monthly. Do you have something that I can use?
Sure. Would you like a pad or a tampon?
Pad, please.
Here you go.
Thank you.
One week later.
Hey.
What's wrong?
Could you maybe give me a piggyback? I'm having kind of like an anxiety breakdown, and they calm me down.
Sure. That's what friends are for, right?
I think, yeah. Thank you. This is awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime. Hey, we've got to understand each other, right? That's what friends do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'll let you down now.
Awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Meanwhile, as I've mentioned before, there are many things related to life skills and major life activities that represent conversation taboos. As I mentioned, I made a connection with what that speaker said at that conference in Florida relating to health, hygiene, and finances. But at the same time, society makes them conversation taboos, but also expects people to manage those things independently without asking for help. And what's sad is that many disabled people need help with life skills related to those things, yet it's not only inappropriate to not be able to manage them, it's also often inappropriate to ask for help when you need it. I mean, the ironic fact is, you're supposed to manage your health independently, and society will judge you if you go out into the community visibly sick, yet oftentimes you're not allowed to talk about your health. And you're supposed to manage your hygiene independently, and society will judge you if you go around the community stinking or wearing dirty clothes, yet you're also told it's inappropriate to talk openly about your hygiene. In fact, one of the things I often laughed about is I would sometimes have outbreaks of body odor due to periodic autism-related struggles where I'd sometimes forget to put on deodorant, and people would pull me aside or push me aside and said, "Hey, you smell right now." But then I would take out deodorant to put it on, and they'd tell me, "No, James, it's not appropriate to put on deodorant here. You've got to go into the bathroom." And I'm thinking, okay, how do I solve this problem? I have to put on deodorant so that you're not upset that I stink. And society also expects people to be able to, in adulthood, manage their finances, yet we're also not typically allowed to openly talk about our finances with other people. And when you think about it, it's amazing how many life skills that are related to living independently that also represent things that society doesn't often allow to be discussed openly. I mean, independent adults are expected to manage emotions to the point where they would get judged negatively if they had meltdowns openly, even though many adults with disabilities still often have meltdown issues related to triggers that other people don't understand, which can cause them to become upset. Many adults with disabilities also have sensory issues that can cause them to have various struggles with certain sensory elements of society and have certain clothing preferences that often mesh with clothing expectations in society. Yet we often can't talk openly about those clothing preferences. And then there are so many other things that people are expected to just do, even though they can't talk about it openly. I mean, think about it. Most of us, when we get up, we're going to take a shower. We're going to put on clean clothes. We're going to wash our hair. Yet, how often do we talk about when we're with friends, "Hey, I took a shower this morning. I washed my hair. I put on clean clothes."
Yeah, I usually don't flaunt it. Be like, "Hey, I took a shower this morning. You want to smell my armpits?"
Yet, those are things that people are expected to do. And many people with disabilities struggle with those things. Yet they also have to have and live with this double whammy of, okay, I'm expected to shower, wash my hair, and do all these things. And because I can't talk about them, I can't always get the help I need. Heck, even if I want to shave, or if I have to shave in order to look respectable, I can't always get the help I need, and then I can't talk about the struggles I'm going through.
He's right. And there are a lot of other things. Like for females, we're expected to shave. We're expected to be, what's the word? Lost for words. We're expected to be, forget it. We're expected to be, just visibly decent in public. That's not how I wanted to say it, but it's my brain. See, this is how I struggle with words. I can't form proper sentences, and this is an issue that people would judge you for if you didn't normally know who you are. It's super hard. But yeah, so people judge you for not being decent, and if you're a female and you're wearing shorts and tank top and you're out in public, and people are gonna be like, "Oh my god, she hasn't shaved, look at her armpits, oh my god, she's at the beach and her legs look like a freaking gorilla. It just, people shouldn't judge you for expectations based on society standards. I think that if you don't want to shave, then you shouldn't have to shave. Shaving should be something that you do for yourself. You shouldn't have to do it for anyone else, especially your significant other. If they are like, oh, well, I'm not going to do anything with you if you don't do the shaving in these specific parts because it makes me uncomfortable to whatever. I mean, I understand that you're not comfortable with it, but at the same time, you can compromise, or you could just not, gosh, you could just not engage in that specific thing. Like, I know that some people are more sexually active with oral, and in order for that, your significant other tends to require you to do whatever. Well, then don't engage in it if you're not comfortable with it. I mean, you should only have to shave if you're comfortable with shaving. It should be your body, your choice, not you're forced into doing it because someone thinks that you should. That's just not. Society needs to just shut up for once and let you live your own life. Me personally, I don't shave during the winter. I mean, that's who I am. And if you don't like it, then I guess you can just stay away from me. Shaving during the winter when you're wearing pants 90% of the time, who cares? It's your body. You do what you want with it. I mean, yes, you still have to be hygienic and wear deodorant and smell nice, but you don't have to shave to be hygienic. It's not required. Society thinks that it is, but it's not. And I just think that society should shut up for once. The standards for females are very high, and I think it's dumb. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Lillith. And the fact is, comfort differences among different individuals with disabilities doesn't have to necessarily relate to sexual activity.
That's true.
In fact, there are many times when people with disabilities often have different comfort levels than their friends, whether it's in a non-romantic friendship, whether or not it's a friendship with a person with a different disability. And sometimes they might want to do something with their friend that isn't necessarily sexual. It could just be something that friends often do. But sometimes they might freak out the friend or make them feel upset when the thing that they enjoy happens to be something that makes the other friend uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So now, Lillith and I are going to perform another set of one-act follies related to some of the expected life activities, social issues, and friendship issues that people with disabilities often struggle with that represent many taboo subjects in society. Many expectations of daily life can be very difficult for adults with disabilities just as much as it was when they were children. But what can make things more difficult is when the things they struggle with often represent taboo subjects to talk about openly, since that also means that if they need help throughout their daily lives, they can't always ask someone when they need to. Hey.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm alright.
How was work?
boring.
Yeah, work can be like that.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, at least it gives us something to do.
That's true.
Hey, yesterday I watched the second part of the last Harry Potter video.
No, I don't like spoilers. Don't spoil it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. But don't worry, I won't judge you. I know sometimes you get upset.
I just don't like spoilers. I love movies, and I don't like people who ruin books or movies for me when I haven't seen them yet.
Well, I can promise you this. I wasn't planning on spoiling it for you. Alright?
Sorry.
It's okay. I wasn't planning on spoiling it. I was just telling you that I watched the movie. Alright?
Okay.
So, it's okay. Hey, just because we're adults now, just because the world tells us we should behave like adults, doesn't mean that we've outgrown everything from our childhood. You had meltdowns as a kid, so did I.
Yeah, it gets really stressful now.
Hey, we can't stop the world from judging us, but at least we don't have to judge each other.
Yeah.
So hey, we're still friends. It's alright. Hey.
Hey. What's up with that long sleeve shirt? Aren't you like hot or something?
You know what? A lot of people ask that. The truth is, I have various tactile issues where I'm bothered by the feeling of air on my skin. So yeah, it's hot out, but I like overdressing. I like wearing long sleeves because I'd rather feel hot than get sensory overload. How about you? Don't you feel a little uncomfortable just wearing a tank top and shorts?
Nah, they're loose and they're comfortable, and it makes me feel more myself. I prefer to wear items that make me feel like me.
Well, I prefer to wear things that don't cause me to have sensory overload myself. And no, I just remember how in high school it would be freezing cold and the popular girls would wear tank tops and shorts just to look cool.
Yeah, and those like super short mini skirts just to like show off their legs. It was so dumb.
Well, I can assure you this. At least I'll know when you're wearing that, it's for sensory reasons, not because you want to show off your body or anything.
And I'll definitely be comfortable. I mean, have you seen these shorts? They have pockets.
Yes. But it's a shame.
That's the best part.
But it's a shame that, people just automatically assume you're trying to show off your body because you're wearing something that's comfortable for you.
Yeah, it's really annoying us. It's like he thinks that, just because you're showing off your legs and your arms, that you must be wanting sexual attention. Screw you, society. I don't care what you think.
Well, I often get frustrated that people automatically think I'm hot and boiling because I like wearing long sleeve shirts. So I have to say, what you go through is probably a little worse than what I go through. But you know what? That's okay. I know that I won't assume you're showing off your body, and know that I may be boiling, but I'm not uncomfortable.
It's good to know that we'll both be comfortable.
All right. Thanks.
But seriously, they have pockets.
Hey. So, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good.
I was just figuring, since it's a hot day today, did you want to go swimming? I know that, I may be bothered by the air in my skin usually, but the one exception I have is when I'm relaxing in the water in a swimming pool.
I don't have a bathing suit. And I'm kinda on my monthly. Oh.
Well, I understand. I should have remembered that could have been the case. Just know I only wanted to invite you to go swimming because swimming calms me down. For me, it's just being in the water and feeling relaxed.
That makes sense.
I didn't realize that you might not have had a bathing suit.
Yeah, I'm not a huge person who swims, so I just never bought a bathing suit.
That's understandable. Well, hey, you're not upset or anything, right?
No, I'm okay.
All right then. Well, hey, I understand. I'll change out of my bathing suit and we'll just go from there. We're still friends, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we can still go to the pool. I just wear my outfit and lay on like a bench under the sun. You could go swimming.
And you know what? Not necessarily today, but I'll take up that offer.
Okay, cool.
All right. For the final segment of Act 1, Lillith and I are now going to address a very sensitive subject that affects the lives of many individuals with disabilities: sexual assault and abuse. Now, to start, take a look at us. If you were to look at either one of us, which one of us would you think has been sexually assaulted? You'd probably think it was Lillith, right?
Because that's what society expects.
Wrong. Both Lillith and I have been sexually assaulted.
And so when I originally moved into this place that I'm living currently, there are 4 bedrooms, but only 2 of them are occupied currently. And when I first met this roommate, who will remain anonymous, when I first met this roommate, I discovered that she worked in a mental health situation where she took care of clients such as, you know, what I've been going through for like 90% of my life. And that, wow, maybe I can relate to this roommate. Maybe this won't be so bad. And I found out that she also has ADHD and anxiety. And I figured, wow, this is great. I'm gonna actually have someone to talk to and relate to over things like this. And that ended up not really being the case. I hoped for something that wasn't happening. Basically, what ended up happening was she's a very sexual person, and I'm not. And she was constantly pressuring me to get laid by some random guy that I didn't know. Like, oh, let's go to the bar, let's go to this party, you know, I'll get you all dolled up and then we can get you a date. But like, I have a significant other that, you know, it's socially wrong to, you know, go out in public and look for another partner while you're with a partner. And as socially, you know, as we're talking about society expectations, that's one of them that I do follow. I think it's wrong. And she didn't care. She wanted me to get laid. She wanted me to meet someone in real life that wasn't a long distance relationship, even though I have a very intense and personal thing going on with this person that I've, actively friends relationship wise for a few years now. And she didn't care. She kept crossing boundaries. being disrespectful. And eventually, she would be bringing home different guys every night, and she would force me to hang out with her and that guy so she didn't feel so uncomfortable. And it was like I was this awkward third wheel to this roommate that I didn't really even know myself. And it was very not something that I would have imagined or liked. And as you can probably assume, the story got worse. She finally found a boyfriend who she felt quite deeply in love with, and he turns out to be this abusive maniac person who acts completely normal towards her, but gets triggered by someone like me. And this story is pretty graphic in terms of abuse and words that you wouldn't normally hear coming out of someone's mouth. The situation started when my roommate decided that she wasn't going to pay the utility bill anymore. She didn't feel the need to pay the utility bill because she wasn't here that often. I mean, you were on the lease, you pay the utility bill. I can't afford to pay $300 financially by myself, unemployed, on disability, just because you don't want to pay the utility bill. It is not my responsibility to pay your half. And even though I was forced into doing it 2 different times so that our lights and water would not get shut off, I will probably never see that money. And it's unfortunate. But where she stands is really different compared to where I stand in typical situation. Her boyfriend is very, as I mentioned, abusive, but only towards me. He got very angry over me getting on her case about not paying that utility bill and threatened to hurt me if I brought it up again. And because I couldn't afford to pay for it and my mom wouldn't get off my back about it, I was forced to bring it up again. And so I ended up paying the price because I couldn't afford to pay for her utility bill. And her boyfriend got violent towards me. He burned me on the neck with a curling iron. He got very angry, and he confronted me about it. Meanwhile, I am feeling unsafe about my situation and how I'm living in my own apartment where he's currently illegally staying almost 24/7 nonstop, and there wasn't much that I could do about it. I ended up moving from the bedroom where I had originally moved into before she ever moved into the apartment to the other side of the apartment over here because I didn't feel safe in my room anymore because we were right next door to each other. Even though we have locks on our doors, I didn't feel safe. And I hate not feeling safe in my own space. And so eventually, it got to the point where my family was very concerned and they reported him to the office desk. And they gave her an eviction notice to get out, or forcibly make him get out, and she could stay. So that's what she did. She got him to leave temporarily for that week, so that the apartment complex would get off of her butt, basically. And now he's back. And he can stay as he pleases because there's nothing against her because she did as she was asked. However, now, every time that he's here, I still feel unsafe because he's still allowed to come here. And on top of all of that, the police refused to make a report on the assault because it was a he said, she said situation with no viable witnesses, even though there was obvious proof and markings on my neck. And now because of that, I can't get a restraining order, I can't get a no contact order, no trespassing, I can't get any of that. I just have to deal with it. Because that's what happens when apparently people just decide that, you know what, we're not gonna do this because we don't care. And that sucks. And my roommate doesn't believe that it happened because she's so in love with this guy, and he tells her that nothing happened and that I'm just lying to her. And I'm lying about it. She starts going off about how I'm some psychotic bitch who made everything up, that I'm this crazy whore. And she hopes that I rot and that I get what's coming to me for trying to ruin her life, and that I only made up this horrendous story and did it to myself because I was jealous of what she had with her boyfriend. And why would I be jealous of an abusive guy in a relationship that I didn't have any part in when I am already perfectly happy with the person that I am currently with? Why would I feel the need to make something up and then put on a whole thing about it? And for God's sake, why would I burn myself? Why would you want to endure that pain? That's what really I don't get. Why would anyone do something like that to themselves just to get someone out of their life? Like, how much of a hateful person do you have to be in order to do that? And why does she think that that's what I did? Why can't she just take what I said and believe it? She's known me for 6 months and she's known him for 3. Now, she acted like she'd known him for years and how she could know every possible thing about him in 3 months. And she kept trying to convince me that her boyfriend wouldn't do something like that because she knows every possible thing about him. Now, I'm sorry. I have known this guy that I'm with for about 2 years now, and there's so many things that I don't know about him. I recently found out that he also struggles with bipolar and anxiety. Now, I didn't know this until about 3 days ago. How can she know every single possible thing about this guy in 3 months? I understand that we obviously don't know each other that well because we've only known each other for half a year, but how can you just assume that this person that you love is who they say they are? Especially when something so obvious as of what happened was, just why? But yeah, there's been a lot of drama with that because she thinks that I'm some crazy person now. She's convinced herself, or he's convinced her, one of the two, that they're not safe here. They don't want to be around me because I could just make up another story at any point in time and that it would hurt either one of them, that I'm a harm to myself and to others, and that I'm some horrible person. I mean, God. It's really stressful. There's a lot of things that she just doesn't do anymore because she doesn't feel the need to. When she was living here before, she didn't feel the need to pay the utility bill. Now when she stays here and she uses the dishes and she throws things away, she doesn't feel the need to do the dishes. She doesn't feel the need to help me take out the trash. She doesn't even feed her cats. She has 2 cats and she'll leave for 4 or 5 days at a time and she won't feed them. I feed them because I feel bad for them. but I'm some horrible person that she's made me out to be, and all because of me confiding in her and telling her that I had similar mental illnesses to what she had, because I thought that would be helpful towards our living together situation. I thought that we'd be able to bond on it because we both had similar problems. But obviously, it's not always right. And that's my story on abuse.
Thank you for sharing, Lilith. I would just like to apologize to everybody. One reality I face with my autism is sometimes I have a tic where it looks like I am smiling whenever I hear things that are serious. It is not controllable, and it doesn't mean that I don't think that what you just said was serious.
Yes, I also relate to that on specific levels. I have problems with my emotions. I giggle in serious moments, which is completely uncontrollable. I can't help it. I try really hard, but it's not always easy. And so, yeah, I completely understand that.
Well, thank you for sharing. And that concludes Act 1 of today's presentation. We will now have a short intermission, and then I will return with Act 2 of Are You There World? It's Me Disability, with another set of assistants. Hello, everybody. I'm James Williams, and welcome to Act 2 of Are You There World? It's Me, Disability. Now, to begin Act 2, we are going to talk about another taboo issue that I mentioned briefly in Act 1, and that is relating to health issues that people with disabilities often experience. And the fact that there are many situations where we really can't appropriately always talk about health issues. And one thing that often becomes a significant issue for people with disabilities is that in many ways, when you're non-disabled, you often can experience, a cold or a flu or a temporary sickness, but usually for non-disabled people, there is a distinct difference between what they're feeling when they are well versus when they feel sick. And there's a strict delineation of, okay, I'm feeling ill with a cold or a flu or an illness versus I am not sick and feeling just fine. However, for many people with disabilities, especially those with various chronic conditions, the line between feeling sick and feeling well can often be blurred to the point where there are some individuals with disabilities who feel a few symptoms of what we would call sickness on a daily basis. And for those individuals, whether or not they feel sick or well can often be a blurry line where they often can be confused. Okay, am I sick today? Am I well today? Because I might be feeling something on a regular basis. I might be feeling exhausted or have fatigue on a regular basis, or I might have a chronic condition where I have a stuffy nose on a regular basis, but it's not a cold and it's not a flu, it's something internal I've lived with for a long time. And as a result, a lot of these individuals might find it difficult when they are out and about, because oftentimes we're not always allowed to openly talk about how we're feeling, and we're supposed to function and be well, even though for many people with those chronic conditions, whether or not they go out and function isn't a question of I am sick or I am not sick, but am I feeling good enough today to function? And of course, when they go out and function, people will often ask on a friendly level, hey, how are you doing? And oftentimes they're supposed to answer and say, I am fine, when in fact, they're still going through that chronic condition. And of course, another problem is that although most of these chronic conditions are rarely contagious, they could be due to an autoimmune condition, they could be due to acid reflux, a gastrointestinal issue, they could be due to various internal causes that are not necessarily contagious. Not everyone around them may understand the nature of those conditions. So oftentimes, an individual with a disability might often have to say, oh, I'm feeling fine when they aren't, and also many times too have to hide visible symptoms of their condition, because oftentimes if a person is visibly showing symptoms of, say, a cold or a flu, and they're openly coughing or sneezing, even if the coughing or sneezing is not due to a contagious condition, many people might try to stay away from them or think, oh my gosh, are you going to get me sick with something? And so as a result, many individuals with disabilities with these chronic conditions often find themselves in a situation where they deal with chronic health issues on a regular basis, but can't always openly talk about them, often have to say they're feeling fine when they aren't, and often have to work hard to hide the conditions that they are going through, out of fear that other people might think that they are contagious when they aren't. And of course, nowadays, with the COVID-19 pandemic going on, a lot of these people are dealing with additional struggles because many of them have lived with symptoms that mirror COVID-19 for many years. However, these symptoms, in many cases, are not caused by COVID-19, yet these individuals can be mistaken for having COVID-19 when they do not. And of course, another struggle is that, we hear a lot now, especially in public places, we see signs that say, don't enter if you are experiencing X, Y, and Z symptoms that are similar to COVID-19. But when you're somebody that has a chronic condition and you've lived with those symptoms much of your life, things can be difficult when you have to go into the community to get what you need, and you have to say to yourself, okay, should I enter a place? Should I stay home? How do I handle my chronic symptoms if I'm experiencing these symptoms on a regular basis and they are most likely not COVID-19? However, not everyone will see that if I display those symptoms. So all of these things have become challenges for a lot of individuals with disabilities who have chronic conditions, and the pandemic has made a lot of taboos related to health and sickness for these individuals a lot worse. To continue our discussion, please welcome my first assistant for Act 2, Miss Athena.
When people ask me, how am I doing today? I don't say fine. my response is always, I've been better. Because that's honesty. My better days are behind me. I'm only getting older. So I've been better. How are you doing?
I'm actually feeling better today, and in fact, ever since October, because of some of the chronic health issues I go through that can appear to be possibly COVID because the symptoms mirror, I have been getting tested weekly. And I am happy to say that I have now underwent over 36 negative tests since the middle of October. It is now currently February since then, but I still continue to get tested weekly to make sure that the symptoms I have or I'm going through are due to my chronic condition and not COVID-19.
I appreciate that. What people don't understand is the mental exhaustion associated with living with chronic pain. There is a breaking point where you stop having tears. They get dry. You can't continue crying when you're in pain. The pain doesn't go away. You just learn to live with it and tolerate it better. And you put on this fake smile when you're in public because you don't want people to see your pain. You want them to treat you with respect like a normal person. You're just trying to blend in. That's hard. It takes a lot of mental energy. People don't even realize. We struggle. It's a lot harder for us to do the same things other people do with ease. I just want people to know that. Because they can't see it unless they've lived it. You're not in this body, so they don't know. And I really hope they never have to experience this because it sucks. Today I am quite mentally fatigued. It's quite hard just to process cognitively, to focus on a task as simple as making breakfast. You kind of lose your train of thought because you're kind of not all there.
Thank you for sharing that, Athena. I also would like to give a disclaimer. The statements I said earlier were not meant in any way to undermine the seriousness of the COVID-19 pandemic or any precautions. Rather, they were about teaching awareness of the additional struggles that individuals with disabilities that also have chronic conditions have been experiencing that I am personally aware of due to the COVID-19 pandemic as they struggle to balance their chronic conditions with the risks that the pandemic has brought. So Athena, tell me a little bit about some of the experiences that you have had trying to disclose or share your health issues, especially at doctor's offices.
I fight discrimination every day. And it's not just in public, it's with nurses and doctors. Because people just don't believe we're really in this much pain. Because if you were in this pain, your face wouldn't look like this. You'd be crying. I'm like, those tears dried up years ago. I don't have enough tears left to just continuously cry. Like, do you want me to come in here in a bad mood and crabby? Or would you like me to, like, put on my customer service smile and have a professional conversation with you? Some experiences have been quite traumatizing. It plays, like, in my head over and over and makes me scared to go to the doctor again. These are people I'm supposed to be able to trust and seek help from, but they're not helping me. They're actually either neglecting me or making conditions worse, situations much worse. They shouldn't be harming me. This is where I'm going for help. one experience at a medical appointment. I'm limited mobility. I can walk a short distance, but there's no telling how long the hallways are going to be at a doctor's office, especially when it's my first time there. And I don't know the layout. I'm not prepared. I have no information. So I have my limits, and we push them, and eventually there's a breaking point where either my body gives out or I have an asthma attack. There's a few different factors in my mobility limits. It's a basket case of issues for me, but I broke down having an asthma attack in the hallway, and the nurse was walking way faster than me, and I couldn't keep up because I was going as fast as I could, and it wore me down to where I was huffing and puffing, and I had to take a seat. I do a wall sit. You lean your back against the wall, and you're kind of in a sitting position, and it helps relieve some of the weight. But during this asthma attack, the nurse far ahead of me didn't seem to care, didn't come check on me, see if I'm okay, didn't offer me water, didn't pay attention to the, universal sign for choking. Apparently doctors and nurses don't know that. I learned that in first aid. I don't know where they went to school, but I'm a little hard of hearing, but I can hear tones, and she was talking in a condescending voice, like she was mocking me and making fun of me for having an asthma attack, because she can walk that far, so everybody should be able to walk that far, when I'm the patient that's disabled. I'm the ill, sick patient. Why are they holding us to their standards, that these able people, it's ableism is what it is. That's what it is, it's ableism. They're holding us disabled to the able standards, and then making fun of us for not keeping up. It's discrimination, it's ableism, and it's not helpful. So it's quite traumatizing. And it didn't even stop there, because it continued when I saw the doctor too, having some more panic attacks and PTSD issues. But it's like another story, so I can stop there.
Thank you very much, Athena. To continue, please welcome my second assistant for Act 2, who will be continuing our dialogue on this subject, the mother of Athena, Miss B.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, welcome. You may begin.
Oh, okay. So I'm not sure if she's talking about the same time that I was with her at the doctor's office. She was walking in the hallway, and a nurse was far ahead, and Athena got to about a foot or two from the doorway and stopped and leaned against the wall, and I was like, the door's right there. Can you make it another 3 feet so you can sit down in a chair? And she just acted like she couldn't. Even I, as her mother, sometimes have a hard time understanding what she's going through. And the nurse did ask if she should get her a wheelchair after I was talking to my daughter for a while. But I don't know if it was like condescending or if she really wanted to help. I couldn't tell. So, but I do agree that when she goes to the doctor, she needs someone to go with her. And I don't know if it's social cues or what, but she doesn't hear. She also doesn't understand or communicate where they can understand. So I try to go with her to her doctor's appointments. So yeah, I think that's, oh, also when we go to the doctor with my other daughter, it's hard to fill out forms when you're, should I go into that?
Yeah, you can.
When you're autistic, like they'll ask you rate your pain, and you're like, but it might not be specific, like, your pain today, your pain this week, what you're being seen for. There's a lot of forms that need to be filled out, and we have a hard time filling them out because we're trying to understand what do they mean. Some questions are so general. So I try to take it as today, or what you're being seen for, of course, I guess. But I have a lot of difficulty with filling out forms. And I don't know, I guess I want to bring that up.
Absolutely, and thank you for sharing, Miss B. And I have to say, you're not alone with that. As an autistic adult who lives with many medical comorbidities, I never understood. Anytime I went to the hospital and they gave me a pain scale from 1 to 10, I was thinking, how can you translate what you're feeling to a number? I mean, I remember when I had really nasty abdominal pain when I was 11 years old, to the point where my family thought it could have possibly been appendicitis. And we go to the ER, and I'm given this number chart, and I'm thinking, I'm just in bad pain. How can I translate this to a number? And I've never understood how other people can translate those things. Likewise, you mentioned the story of, struggling to walk into the hallway, and I can tell you I had a lot of strength issues growing up. In fact, see, where I grew up in my home state of Illinois, we actually have in school some of the highest expectations for PE for kids. And I just could not keep up what I was expected to do in PE in school. I remember as a warm-up, I was expected to jog for about 5 to 10 minutes, and that was supposedly a warm-up in the 4th and 5th grade. And by that time, I would often be exhausted. And so, yeah, I mean, I do know what it's like when you're expected to have certain physical abilities and be able to communicate in ways related to your health. And because of your disability, that can be hard for you. Thank you very much for sharing, Miss B.
You're welcome. I thought of something else. When going to the doctors, and you have, like, my older daughter would have allergies a lot. So if not even the doctor, we'll go to a store, and she goes through the scented aisle, like water detergent, and she'll start having a runny nose or cough or sneeze, and the aisle people clear out now with COVID. So I find that funny, but it's just allergies. So she wears a mask that says it's just allergies, which is, I think, appropriate. My other daughter, when we go to the doctor and they have to take the temperature and ask you these list of questions, well, half those questions are yes on a regular basis. So we answer not out of the ordinary, or not, not other than what is typical for her. So thank you.
And in fact, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and I realized that many of the symptoms of COVID-19 mirrored things that I actually go through on a regular basis,
Yep.
I actually contacted one of my doctors, who basically said to me, okay, one thing you're going to need to do to get through this pandemic is figure out what your normal is and what isn't your normal, and to use your normal as a way of determining whether or not you may be sick with COVID-19.
Right. Because when they ask, do you have a headache, and you say yes, but no, I have a headache every day, or what is your fever? Well, my fever is normally 99 or whatever.
Indeed, it was for that reason that I decided eventually to get tested weekly, and I have a nice relationship with various testing centers who actually thank me for getting tested as frequently as I do.
Well, thank you.
You are very welcome.
Okay.
So now, to continue, Athena, Miss B, and myself will be reenacting a scene related to the health issues we just discussed. Come on, let's go.
Really? Athena, the chair's right there. It's like 3 feet to the door, to the chair. You can make it.
We could get you a wheelchair.
You need a wheelchair? You got this. It's only 3 feet. Come on. Here you go.
To continue with Act 2, I am now going to be discussing, with the help of my assistants, another issue that people with disabilities face relating to taboo subjects, and that is the stigma of having to rely on government benefits and government services when you have a disability. One reality that many people with disabilities face throughout their lifetimes is they often have to access and rely on government benefits and or government services in order to get the essential supports they need, whether it's medical support, whether it's financial support, or whether it's acquiring personal care. But unfortunately, we live in a society that often looks down on individuals who rely on benefits, and in some situations, it can be taboo to openly talk about the fact that you are on government benefits or rely on government services. Even though for many people with disabilities, it's not an exaggeration to say that whether or not they can access those benefits or services is a matter of life and death. However, one thing that sadly occurs is a lot of people in our society are not always aware of how the ADA determines whether or not a person can legally work, what their standards are for whether or not a person is eligible for government benefits. And as a result, a lot of people with disabilities are judged negatively for being on government benefits and services because of that lack of awareness. And it can be taboo in many cases for such individuals to talk openly about the benefits they need to survive. So to continue this discussion, please welcome back my assistant, Athena.
Hello. We have additional guests. Just ignore the princess here. It is a fight to even get those benefits because they tend to not believe us, and they accuse us of exaggerating, being over dramatic about our needs. Like with my walking limits, these issues I'm having, like at the doctor's office, could be avoided if I had a wheelchair. But the government won't provide me with a wheelchair because they don't provide them for when you leave your home. They want to make sure you need it 24/7. You have to be 100% crippled to get a wheelchair. So I'm basically a prisoner in my home, not allowed to leave because I don't have the adaptive equipment I need to be able to leave my house and walk long distances at a grocery store, at the doctor's office, and it's even making it difficult just to access medical care because they won't give me the equipment I need to access it. Something I want everyone to hear, because this information will be useful to you before I forget, is when I was fighting for Social Security, I had I think they call it vocational rehab. It's like a job coach. The reason I'm not able to even get a job, and this is a very important line for you to remember. Could you please? Any one of my disabilities or any one of my accommodations would be reasonable. But because there's too many of them, no employer can work with all of my accommodation needs, and this also affects my housing and my access to medical care. It's not just work. This affects my whole life, everything in my life, from not just work, but housing and medical care. So that's how I got disability, because I have too many accommodations and no one can meet all of them. This also affects my transportation, because I can't even use disability medical transportation because of their rules and limits. The only way I can get around is if I drive myself in my vehicle, because I can carry, it's like a giant purse. It has all the equipment I need, everything emergency I might need, a bottle of water. They don't allow you to have beverages or food, and with my appointments and my health issues, I have to eat every 2 hours. And with transportation and the doctor appointment, it's 4 hours of my day. So I have to eat somewhere in the middle, but I can't eat on the ride. I can't eat at the doctor. So I'm forced to just starve all day. And then my doctors are yelling at me, you need to eat before physical therapy. I'm like, I can't, there's no time. I don't get to just stop on the way to the doctor and eat at McDonald's. That's not an option with medical transportation. They go straight from A to B, no food stops. So that's been making my life really difficult too. But yeah, any one of my accommodations I could work, but because there's just too many, I can't work. It has been a big barrier in my life. But back to the stories. I am in group residential housing, and I can't even tell my family, like my aunts or my grandparents, because in their head, they don't see me as disabled. And if I try to remind them, hey, I have an allergy to this food group, like they don't even consider my allergies when we get together for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever holidays, birthdays. They just make whatever food they can eat, and they don't even care that I'm allergic to it. So I need to start eating on the way to family gatherings, because they just don't care. I don't know how people can even be like that, like not care about your family allergies when they're making a meal. So I had to eat ahead of time, or I starve and eat when I get home, which is really sad. I can't tell them about my housing because they don't see me as disabled, and even if I try to explain it, they're in disbelief, so there's no changing their mind. They are a hardcore set that you look like an able person. What society wants is a visual cane or a walker to show you're disabled. Well, I'm still fighting to get that kind of assistance. Unfortunately, I can't grip a cane or a walker. I need something with a toggle or like more arm support for a cane, like using my elbows. I can't even use like common equipment. Like my limitations are so many, and people just don't understand how much that really affects our lives. So every day is a struggle, mentally and physically. And I'm sorry, but there's just no time to work when I have 2 appointments a day, 4 hours a piece. I spend 40 hours a day at the doctor. 40 hours a week at the doctor. And weekends, I'm supposed to be able to catch up on emails, physical mail, house chores, groceries, pharmacy stuff. I'm not a normal person. I have maybe 1 good day a week where I'm feeling good enough to actually function. And then I'm playing catch up for the week. So I end up overdoing it and pushing myself and hurting myself even more. So I'm on bed rest for 3 to 5 days at a time. So I only get like 1 or 2 good days a week to even do stuff. Well, so I need extra help, like PCA help. But my family is in disbelief, and there's no change in their minds. They don't understand the need for a PCA because I'm too slow and I can't keep up with the demands of the world. I can't keep up with just communication. I need someone to take some of the weight off my shoulders so I can have time to respond and communicate with my doctors and with government assistance, because believe it or not, you do have to keep proving continuously you are still disabled and magically didn't get better. So I have to keep up with their demands too. They want bank statements. They ask for like a lot of information, and if you don't provide it, they cut you off. So unfortunately, I'm going to be a dependent forever, and people just don't understand that. I'm born this way. It wasn't a choice. It wasn't an accident. This is my life.
Thank you for sharing, Athena. I think the one thing that is very important for anyone watching this to understand is that Athena and I are technically what evaluators would consider high functioning or higher functioning. But both of us have what many would call hidden disabilities. And at the same time, regardless of our functioning levels, both of us have had struggles with many major life activities, and we have also had many struggles in workplace settings. That doesn't mean that we're lazy, and it doesn't mean that we're dumb. It just means that regardless of what any evaluator would say is our functioning level, we have very real issues related to our disabilities that have made it difficult for us to thrive in many workplace settings and other settings in the community. And thus, both of us rely on some form of government benefits and services in order to survive. Athena and I will now reenact a skit that is meant to demonstrate various things that people have shared with both of us regarding our reliance on government services and benefits. Hey, you can work.
What makes you think that?
Well, at least my tax dollars are going to someone I know.
Sure is nice getting together with family, isn't it? Why can't you pick up some freelance work? You ever tried working Uber, Instacart? You don't even have to drive. You just do the shopping. You could be a picker.
Just because I can walk, and just because I look like I'm not disabled doesn't mean I can do all those things. In
I could do it.
In fact,
I have a disabled niece, and she's working at the grocery store just fine.
well, I'm on disability because of social issues that have made those things difficult for me. And also, just because I can do the job doesn't mean that people are willing to pay me.
You're just making excuses. You just want to be lazy and mooch off the system.
Well, I guess we'll have to agree to disagree.
You look fine to me.
Meanwhile, health is a very complex subject, and health taboos in society aren't just related to physical health conditions. There are other aspects of health that also relate to taboos within society. And one other way that health intersects with societal taboos is connected to mental health, but also how people with disabilities can be treated differently related to their health issues due to their chronological age, which in many cases is not always the same as their mental or emotional age. Indeed, one thing I can tell you from experience is that I have had many mental health challenges, especially bouts of depression that I often have to hide in many polite settings in order to function in society. So, to begin our discussion related to mental health and health issues related to age-based misunderstandings, which will be our final subject of Act 2, I shall now introduce my third assistant for Act 2, Nada.
Hi. Man, there's a lot to go over, I guess. I personally suffer a lot from systemic depression due to all of my physical health ailments, which I won't stress you with. But a really big part of my struggles with mental health is a lot of overlooking from doctors and schools a lot. Like, the most common one I get is either if there was a magic bullet to put you down, I'd give it to you, or if they don't know all of my physical conditions, it's you're too young to know how depression is. You're too young to know what it's like to be this depressed. You're obviously faking it. And I just don't enjoy how much of a stigma there is around mental health as a whole when it comes to both people suffering and not suffering from a lot of physical health issues. It just really sucks to know that people are just so quick to judge and stigmatize the idea that people can suffer with such mental health in so many ways. Like, back with my old school, which I am currently in the middle of filing a lawsuit against, they would love to do things after I got IEP, which basically means they cannot discriminate me against my mental health or physical health. That would be incredibly unlawful, and I have it on paper. Like, a lot of the times I would suffer a lot of mental health episodes because during the time I was basically told by a doctor who was incorrect that I was dying. So of course, in my brain, it's, why am I focusing on schoolwork if I'm dying? I don't want to be here. And with that, I definitely took it out on school, going, I'd rather just end it now, get it over with. The school never paid any attention to that, even when I told them, word for word, I'm going to attempt. They would take my phone from me and send me back to class saying I need to focus on schoolwork, not how much I want to kill myself. Just instances like that where it's because of my age, it's overlooked even though they're a mandated reporter. They don't care about actually doing what they need to do when they would rather focus on getting the school a paycheck and getting them their own asses covered by taking my phone so I can't contact my parents saying, hey, I can't be here right now, or what they just did to me. A really good example is I have a restraining order against a kid from middle school. He has done a couple of things, and when I got to the high school, it was in my file I'm never to be in a class or around this child, and lo and behold, I was put into classes with them. I was forced to either change my schedule or deal with them because who cares? It's your problem. He's a delinquent, but he's going to keep being a delinquent, so who cares? It's just the constant battle it feels that I have to adjust myself when it comes to bad episodes of mental health or my own trauma because the school doesn't want to deal with me. They won't change for me even when I have a government letter basically saying they have to. It's just a constant struggle it feels to always be the one having to change for them because I'm not good enough. That's really all it is you're not the one that's good enough. You're the one that needs to work on yourself. Maybe you shouldn't have broken out like that. Maybe you should have chosen better words, or you should have calmed down. It's not okay to do that to people with issues, whether you know about them or not, to always blame the person and not perhaps the situation, perhaps the day, perhaps anything else. It's always someone else's fault, not your own. And that's a big issue with people who suffer from a lot of physical disabilities because we want to be the best we can be, but it's really hard when it's constantly built against us, especially mental health wise. I've had therapists tell me they don't believe I have all these issues and that maybe I am just diagnosed with one thing, and that's faking disabilities. And it's honestly sad to know that people that high up in the medical field can have those ideas and still have their job. So a lot definitely needs to be done in the therapy sessions, and not therapy sessions, but the therapy side of things, because those are the people you go to looking for help. And I feel like a lot of things aren't actually being done there when you're looking for help. A lot of it is really traumatizing, especially in places like inpatient. I've been to places like, excuse me, Riverside, where they really have never cared about the mental health. They just care about getting you to say, no, I'm not suicidal, I can go home. And it just feels like a lot of people nowadays don't actually care about their job when it comes to actually helping people get better. And it's just a sad thing to see, because it leads to a lot of ableism or assumptions that, well, I'm fine, so you should be fine. I just feel like more people who understand mental health and have been through it themselves should be in a therapy role than people who've never dealt with it before in their lives, or people from, I don't want to say other countries, but people with different mindsets where if you disrespect someone older than you, you obviously need to pay for that, because where I come from, you don't do that. It's just a lot of that stuff shouldn't be acceptable in a therapy sense or a mental health sense, and people need to be believed and thought about. And yeah, that's really all there is to it.
Thank you very much for sharing, Nala. To continue the conversation, I'd like to welcome back my other assistant and the older sister of Nala, Athena.
Hello again. Pleasure to be back. When I was 18, I had really large chesticles, somewhere above an H cup, and I had just started this really nice job at a well-known retailer. I'm just gonna call them Supermart. I'll let you guess which one that is. And the job was going well because I was physically more able than I am today. I could walk. I actually lost a lot of weight at that job, and it was going really good for me. But there was some sexism discrimination going on at Supermart. I had been verbally warned and written up for dress code violations. I was wearing a turtleneck of the color of their uniforms with the company polo shirt on top of that. So there is absolutely no physical way I was exposing any skin besides my chin, my nose. Everything was covered below my chin. But they kept writing me up for exposing my chest at work, which isn't physically possible with a turtleneck and a polo. But it's because of how huge my chest was that I got written up and was on the edge of being fired. So before I could get fired, I was actually moving and had to resign. But I can't believe they could get away with that kind of discrimination just because you have curves. It's not even like skin wasn't even exposed, but I got in trouble and I nearly lost that job because I was a woman with a big chest. I've had a reduction surgery since then, so I've gone down, but yeah, there's still a lot of sexism in the workplace, and this was back in like 2007. So a lot needs to be changed in the workplace. We need more awareness, And we need enforcement. People need to stand up to these corporations. We need unions. We need advocates. So that's my story of Supermart. Would you like to know about the post office incident? Yes? Okay, so I was going to the post office and I had parked in the handicap spot and I hung up my beautiful blue placard in the appropriate place in the windshield. And it was raining, so when I got out of the car, I kind of ran to the door, and there's a really long line because we're in a really popular city. So I had to sit on the floor, which is degrading and embarrassing, but I don't have a wheelchair, as I explained, and I'm still fighting to get one to this day, so I don't have to sit on the floor in the middle of winter on the nasty floor with all the boots and the mud and stuff. So, but one of the citizens that were in line ahead of me decided to make a big scene about it and called the cops on me because they didn't think I was disabled. I didn't look disabled because of my age. So they called the cops, and there's absolutely no reason to be wasting our tax dollars or police time for a legal disabled person using their legal placard in a legal handicap spot because they don't think I'm disabled enough. Like, I've gone through the appropriate courts and doctors to get this, but they're going to make a scene and challenge my disability when I'm physically sitting on the floor in front of them because I can't stand. I don't know what goes through these people's heads. Sorry, I'm autistic. I don't understand the way normal people think, and I would love for someone to explain it to me because I just don't understand where they're coming from, why they feel the need to challenge disabled people. Like, I had to fight hard for that placard. And honestly, I had to leave because I wasn't going to deal with that abuse. I wasn't going to deal with the cops because there's even past trauma with police abuse. So I just don't want to deal with that, especially when I'm the victim here. It's different if I'm asking police for help, but when they're being called on me, when I'm doing nothing wrong and I'm the victim, things escalate. Like, I don't want to go to holding. I don't want to go to jail for complete garbage nonsense. This is what causes PTSD, is these snooty, yuppie people that are causing drama and just raising issues that isn't an issue. They just create this. They just make life harder for us. It's discrimination. It's ableism. Like, yeah, I ran for 5 feet. That doesn't mean I'm not disabled. You're not my doctor. You're not a medical expert. Although he did say he was a volunteer firefighter, so I don't know. Kind of loses more respect for that field in my eyes after going through that. So now to this day, I avoid that particular post office. I will go out of my way to another one, just so I don't have to deal with the attitude of the people in this big, rich, yuppie city.
Thank you very much for sharing, Athena. And I think one thing that is important to realize here is that when you have a disability, you take that disability with you wherever you go in the community. You live with that disability 24/7, even when you're asleep. And even if a story you heard today might not appear to be related to the subjects that I and my assistants officially were addressing, think again. When we wake up in the morning, we have to live with disabilities that are likely going to be with us for as long as we are living. So, thank you for sharing what you shared, Athena. And now, we will be showing another skit related to mental health issues and how they intersect with taboo subjects and disability. Okay, let me see what my next appointment is and who's next to come visit the vice principal's office. I see that Nala has made an appointment. All right, Nala, if you're outside, you may come on in. Welcome, Nala. How may I help you?
Well, I've been having some issues, you see. I kind of had a note in my, student portfolio since middle school that basically says I'm not supposed to have classes with this kid. And I walked into class this week and I noticed I have 3 classes with him. And that's kind of not cool. You need to change that.
Unfortunately, Nala, you are already in those classes with him, so you just need to get used to it. There is nothing I can do.
Well, it's been in there since middle school. You guys really should have checked that before putting me in class with him. It is possible to still change classes for the next couple of weeks. So yeah, there is.
Unfortunately, Nala, that window has passed, and I am not able to do anything to change your classes or your schedule. Please head back to class now.
Yeah, whatever.
Hi, so my daughter Nala at school, she is a great advocate for herself, and she went to the lady counselor who switched her schedule out as much as she could, and a lady counselor told her to go see the vice principal to switch out the last class because she couldn't put her into any classes that were full, so she couldn't switch her out. So Nala went to the vice principal, who basically told her, no, it's full, can't do anything, go back to class. At that point, my daughter called me, and I went in, and I said, I've had enough. Basically, the school hadn't told us about anything that had happened or gone on, so if I didn't know, I felt the other person's parents didn't know, so we went and filed a police report so that they would definitely find out what had happened in the last 2 years at the middle school. So then after filing a police report, I went back to the assistant principal and had a talk with him. Either switch her out or there's going to be a lawsuit. Well, they switched her out. So you got to be an advocate for your kids. And it's good when the kids tell you what's going on. So anyway, I hope that the parents of the child give him some help, because I know it's difficult to put handicapped kids in with normal population, and you try, but if they can't handle being in with normal population, you really can have some problems like this arise. Feel sorry for the kid, but we also feel sorry for my daughter because of what she went through.
Thank you for watching today's presentation of Are You There World? It's Me, Disability. I hope that this presentation and performance has helped shed light to anyone watching this regarding how taboos in our society and conversation taboos intersect with many struggles that people with disabilities encounter on a daily basis related to life experiences and major life activities. I'm James Williams, and I would like to thank my assistants for participating in this presentation with me. Thank you all for watching, and have an amazing day.